Hey guys, we're back with part two of our hero reviews series, and this one's going to be on Lorelei. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. And this one's going to be interesting because it's one of the first heroes that released like after I had quit playing, I believe. So when I was initially reading through her skills, I was like, goodness, this hero's got so many good things. Um, and now that's less so, but she's still really interesting here to talk about, and I think still very viable. So it should be a good one. Uh, we'll start really quick. I'll try to get through this faster than the Valk video, but you never know, right? All right, stats. That's what we always start with. We start with stats, and these are at 10 star, so you can find these in the gallery. But on the screen, actually, I have both stats, right? I have the 14, not the base because it has the included buffs, but the 10 star up there and the 14 star right here. But the reason we have the 10 star up is because it's easier to rank the heroes against each other. So for Lorelei, we've got HP um, at 30th with um, 10,000 or 101,000 HP, and then attack she's at 19th. At defense, she's got 9, and that puts her at 38th. And at speed, she's at 1187. That puts her at 41st. That is really bad. Like, initially, you look at the stats, and this is really bad. But because I know she's a strong hero, I'm really what I'm thinking is, wow, the stats are so bad, her skills must be really, really good. But she is a mage, I should mention. You probably already know this, but she's a elf mage and plays a big support role, but we'll talk about that later. Let's go ahead and move on to the guild tech, because this is I like to knock out the easy stuff first, right? Guild tech, she's mage, so she gets skill damage, hit rate, crit rate, attack, and HP. These are all great stats. Mages have a really good guild tech tree. They do miss out on dodge, but they have hit rate, so really useful against some of the tank heroes, and everything else is normal. So moving on from guild tech, let's go into the skills. So this is how I like to do skills. I think I'm going to follow this trend in the rest of the videos. Is I'm going to read the skills and not comment on them, so you just get an idea of what they do. You kind of build up your idea of how good they are and what you think about them, and then afterwards I'll say these are what I think. This is what I think. So let's just go ahead and read through them. Galaxy Dragon 3, active skill inflicts 180% damage to all enemy heroes. Remember, all enemy heroes, really good. Removes burning, bleeding, poisoning, and weakness on herself, and all friendly heroes gain burning, bleeding, poisoning, and silence resistance, plus 45% for 2 rounds. This doesn't stack. So, on top of this skill also reduces the speed of all enemy heroes by 35 for 3 rounds. And then the skill damage of all enemy heroes decreases by 30% for 2 rounds. So those are the debuff portion, and then she has a buff portion of her skill as well. The attack power of all allied heroes is increased by 20% for 3 rounds. It's not stackable. Remember, this is 20% additive, not multiplicative, which is what previous video about stats, which I really recommend you watch, I talked about. It's called the Tap Tap Hero Stats Explained. It's actually probably more important than all these hero reviews, but I needed to do it before we talked about this stuff. Alright, for her first passive, she has Tidal Waves 3, which just gives her these stat buffs, 35% HP, attack, and energy. I was, it sounds like I'm skipping over it, but energy, which is spelled incorrectly on there, so devs need to go in and fix this typo, but by 50. That's unique, so I just wanted to make sure we didn't skip that. Okay, increases skill damage by 60%. This is Surging Flow 3. Basic attacks deal damage 100% of attack to 2 random enemies and reduces target speed by 20 for 2 rounds. This is only applies on her basic attacks, so keep that in mind. When Goddess Form 3, this is our last passive, when her HP falls below 50%, remove any control, like freeze, petrify, stun, so any controlled effects on herself, and heals herself for 200% of her attack for 3 rounds. this also increases her energy by 50, damage reduction by 35% for 3 rounds, and this only triggers once. So, HP drops below 50%, remove all control on yourself so you're not stunned or anything anymore. You heal yourself for 3 rounds, and then increases your energy by 50 and damage reduction by 35% for 3 rounds. Okay, keep that in mind, 3 rounds. Alright, now, you know what? Let's keep going. I'll talk about talents. The specific talent I want to talk about is her Elf 1, Talent 3. Oops. Sorry, let's go here. She has 2 options. She gets Wrath of Nature, which when takes a critical strike, increases her self crit rate by 15% for 3 rounds and increases her crit damage by 5% for 3 rounds. And then the other one is Poison Sharp Blade, which you're probably more familiar with, as I see most people take this. When an ally crits, she inflicts poison to the enemy that is, that got crit, and deals extra damage, 45% of attack for 3 rounds. That's like the poison effect. So whenever an ally crits an enemy, that enemy takes poison damage for 3 rounds. Alright, so those were her skills and her talents. Now, let's get into the not so boring part of the video, I hope, and talk about what I think like the highlights of her skills are, what her real strengths are. So let's start with her main skill. Her main skill is, I mean, look at this text. It's got so much going on in one skill. It's really crazy. This is kind of off topic, but I just feel like it's fun to point out. But I just remember back to the old heroes where their text was like 2 lines. It was just like, does 150% of their attack to 3 enemies and poisons them for 3 rounds for 20% of their attack, and that's it. Maybe they have a stun or something, but that's it. Now it's like it does all of this, and you're like, okay, that's all. And now wait, you have to have a debuff, you have to have attack buff, you have to have like CC, like all the speed. It has to like include all the stats. So this is really strong, but I haven't even gotten into why. So first off, she gets rid of all, whenever she casts her skill, she gets rid of all burning, bleeding, poisoning. That's really strong because so many heroes have that, like, and you don't really notice it. Like, everyone sees the big numbers when you hit like for a big skill damage, but these things can stack on themselves, right? So you've got burning and bleeding. You can get that from a ton of heroes. Like, I mean, Phoenix for one, burning. Aegina, like, we're going to talk a lot about her later, and she'll get her own video, I think. But like, so many heroes provide these dots, and just cleansing them is just an added bonus, I feel like. And then after, all friendly heroes gain resistance to those. So she removes it from herself, but then gives everyone a resistance to burning, bleeding, poisoning, and the crazy part is they add this just a tiny section at the end, silence resistance. Like, that is huge. 45% silence resistance for 2 rounds. Like, guys, silence is like everywhere, I feel like, in the game. Like, so many heroes bring silence because I think the devs like the fact that your hero isn't just like locked out. You can still do things, but I mean, look how great skills are now. Being silenced is really painful. Like, even the heroes that have, like, drop below 50% HP, or a certain, like, not just 50%, but there's other heroes that drop below a certain amount of HP and then they silence. Like, this is going to help your entire team. I had to point this out as a huge strength. This is one of the biggest strengths of this skill, is this silence resistance. By the way, some artifacts like are built around silence resistance, right? And you can just get it like on your entire team. Not as much, obviously, but from this skill. Next, let's go into her debuffs because I think they're worthy to talk about. So the debuffs are: she decreases all enemy heroes' speed by 35. That's a sizable amount. Like 35 is a big number here. For one, you're just basically saying this T1 talent or whatever, see you later. If you took speed as your talent, but you're slower than Lorelei, then you just wasted your talent. That's what it feels like. Any duplicate heroes, like say you have the same exact team, if your Lorelei casts her skill first, then your team is going second in every duplicate roll, right? Like, my Kurt versus your Kurt. Mine's going first now because I had a Lorelei on my team, so that's big. Um, even on defense, right? As long as you have Lorelei. Reduces enemy attack by 20%. Or sorry, skill damage by 30% for 2 rounds. This is just good. Like, just have to say, like, it's just good. It just reduces your whole team's damage taken. And on top of that, she increases the attack of all allied heroes by 20%. And this is, I mean, I don't know really what to say. These buffs are really easy. That's why I like this hero, actually, because it's really easy to understand what she does. It's just crazy she does so much. But this is really simple. Debuffs the entire enemy team, increases your resistances to dots and silence, and then increases your own team's attack. That's what basically her skill. These are great stats. Remember how it's not as good as debuffing the enemy's attack because of the way the calculation works, where this is still just a additive bonus to your 20%, whereas a debuff to attack would be like an entire 20% off of the enemy's attack stat. Where are we? Okay, so second skill. That's not a skill, that's passive. Alright, increases attack by 35%, or sorry, HP, doesn't really matter. Attack by 35% as well. I mean, like, it does matter. I'm just saying, like, whatever, we see this a lot, but this is what we don't see a lot, is energy. This is, like, this is what makes her unique, right? Like, Lorelei is built around this, starting with full energy, but without an energy artifact. That's what this means, by the way. And it increases her energy at the start of a battle by 50. You already start at 50, so you're already going to have max energy now. And so this means you can basically put any artifact you want on Lorelei that's not Tear the Goddess, or the skill one. What's it called? Sorry. Wow, I'm blanking on the skill shards or whatever. You know what I'm talking about. The not as good tier one. But this is crazy. Guys, sorry. In the middle of my video, I've got to stop this monster from. I don't know what the negative part of not killing the monster is besides not getting the loot. Apparently, you know, the thieving guy, he comes and takes your chest, so I need to watch out for the goblin. Not even. Okay. She can take any artifact now that's not an energy artifact, and this is really, really good, guys. Like, I honestly don't like Tear the Goddess. I really disliked how they added it into the game. One, because you needed it. It's like essential. Even for some heroes to be viable, they kind of have to have energy. Think like Chesia, right? So you have to balance the game around a lot of heroes. Like, some people's teams at this point their whole team has got full energy at this first turn. So I don't like how they added it, but I think this is a better way to do it. Give this hero like a unique ability to go first, or cast her skill on the first turn. And the reason I also dislike Tear the Goddess is that the other artifacts lost so much value. It was like, I really want to take this damage reduction artifact, but I can't because I need Tear so that I can, you know, get a buff from my main skill. And then the main skills just kept getting better and better. So it was just even better to run Tear the Goddess, right? And it's not even like the stats on Tear the Goddess are bad, attack and HP, right? So I think this is a cool ability, and it makes her really unique. And you can finally take other artifacts on her, although there's some that are much better than others. So the next one is increases skill damage by 60%. It's just a regular buff. And then basic attacks deal to 2 random enemies and reduces target speed. So reducing target speed is obviously huge to both of them. So this can just really slow down. Ideally, it hits like a, you know, someone who's really reliant on going first, someone squishy. So that's just good ability. And the kind of like the hidden buff here is that because she attacks 2 random enemies, there's less chance that like her attacks get dodged and she doesn't gain energy or anything like that, right? So she's more likely to hit her abilities, and she has hit rate as a mage, so she has very low chance of being dodged. This is an extra 20, by the way, on top of her active skill. Let's go to her last skill here, or her last passive. So when her HP falls below 50%, she gets healed by quite a bit. Like 200% of her attack for 3 rounds is a lot of healing. Don't underestimate that. and then removes all control. That's just really good. I think Lexar was the first one to come out with this skill. It's weird how I remember that, but I forget a lot of other things. But I think he had an ability like this where he dropped below and he like removed everything. So the idea is that he could like do something. He had a chance to do something. And she has that as well. A lot more other stuff that Lexar doesn't have, by the way. She increases her damage reduction by 35%, which is like for 3 rounds. 35%. Remember, go watch the stats video. Damage reduction is really good. I won't even go into that again. But increases her energy by 50 for 3 rounds. Like this is crazy. Like 50 energy just automatically. Like you gain energy other ways as well. So it's not as good as just thinking like, oh, she's getting like Phoenix can give energy. When you get hit, you gain energy. But still, this is huge. There's potentially you're casting skills like every turn, right? Depending on what happens in the battle. So that's really good. She can carry a lot of fights like this because this skill is so great. We already talked about how good this was. I know a lot of it doesn't stack, but just the removing all the burning and stuff, and then like 180%, and then the speed. That doesn't stack actually, but just making sure it's on all the time is really good. Okay. Oh yeah, her talents. Talk about because I talked about them over the skills. Almost everyone is taking the poison sharp blade. Because I just think that it synergizes. Oh, we'll talk about that again. But it synergizes well with heroes that do extra damage to poison units, and it's just the extra damage, you know. The other one is more self. I don't see this hero as like a selfish hero. I feel she's more of like a buffer, debuffer type. So obviously I want to go with poison sharp blade, but if you wanted to make Lorelei your carry, which is definitely possible, by the way, especially because she starts with full energy, she can do insane damage with Ragnarok. She's one of the heroes that can take Ragnarok. I personally not using her that way because I have other really good damage dealers as well, but you can. Like, she has the potential to do tons of damage. She is a mage, remember that. She's not a cleric. Feels like she's a cleric for some reason, but she obviously doesn't have the speed for that. Okay. Now let's just talk about all this combined. What does this mean? Like, what does this mean for Lorelei? Basically, she has one of the best debuffs in the game. She reduces enemy speed. Like that, you just can't. I can't not stress how good, like, important speed is in the game and how good reducing it is. Like, the match just changes. Like something that is almost pretty much set. Once you have Lorelei on your team and people aren't going early enough to cast their skills to give themselves their buffs, then you've got a totally different fight, right? What else? I don't think there's any way to. I don't think there's no way to cleanse it. It's not like a debuff like any hero can get rid of. It's like once you've lost the speed, you've lost it, right? Also reducing enemy skill damage is pretty good, and we reviewed that. I actually, in the stats video again, you can see how important skill damage is. Okay, the second most like highlight about this hero is definitely her. I talked about it already, but the full energy. When she starts with full energy, she can take any other artifact. Also, that's not the only energy aspect. When she drops to full of 50% HP, she's gaining 50 energy every round for 3 rounds. Like, there's no other hero that starts with full energy bars, so there's no like competition in this area, and it just Ragnarok really good. Queen's Crown really good. Like, say they introduce another OP artifact that's not a tier artifact, she's gonna get a buff from that. Like, it's not like a kind of like a what's the word? I can't remember what the word is, but basically when it wasn't targeted for just her, but it just happened to be for her, right? Someone in the comments can tell me why I brain farted on that word. Sometimes that makes. Oh, also this makes it so sometimes she can cast twice in a row. It's crazy. The third most important is all the resistances we talked about, especially the silence resistance. So many heroes silence now, and there's that silly like drop down below HP. You get like a team silence. Like that's going to be negated a little bit more, or you know the chance. Um, so think about it this way. There's like not only does she give resistance against like silence, but all the dots. Like Aegina was really popular for a while. Lorelei was like kind of the counter to her. Also, she was good on her team as well. It's like they worked well together, and she also countered her because all those resistances really hurt Aegina's damage. I actually don't like Aegina's name, by the way. Like I don't even know. It's got like a just doesn't roll off the tongue very well. Very well. Um, Also, this isn't gonna happen as because of Phoenix's speed. But if there's any case where a Phoenix doesn't cast their skill before Lorelei does, she can reduce the chance of the burning. And if your heroes aren't burning, then they don't take as much damage because of Phoenix's abilities that like increase damage to burning units. Um, so there's an off chance that works, right? So the last, or no, there's one more. She has really strong survivability because of the self-cleanse thing, being able to, you know, get 200% of her attacks healing over 3 rounds, and the damage reduction. Damage. Remember, we talked about how good damage reduction is. It's the more you have, the better it is, right? Just really, really good. Um, the last thing is that she can do damage. She normally isn't built that way, I feel like. Maybe that's just on my server, but she can do a ton of damage. She's a mage, right? So she can equip Ragnarok without taking like a hit, like without an energy artifact. So you're talking about round 1 skill cast with Ragnarok on that. So goes through all the armor. Also the fact that she can like drop below 50% HP and start gaining a bunch of energy and continue to cast skills over and over and over again. Like, she's maybe not a huge burst damage dealer, but over a couple of turns, she can start racking up a ton of damage. She kind of reminds me of Themis, right? Sorry, I had to kill that thing. It's going to take my loot. Alright, so let's talk about her weaknesses now. Those were her strengths. Her weaknesses are her base stats, right? We talked about it earlier, but her base stats are just so bad, especially her speed. You know what? And while we're on that, let's show the speed. I just want to hope you guys understand. Hopefully you guys can see this image. It's kind of small. This is all her different speed combinations. This is with a speed rune, the tier 1 speed talent, and a speed artifact. The combinations, all of these, you can see that the fastest she'll be is 1494, and then the slowest she'll be is 1352. So, I forgot to mention this. I mean, I was going to bring it up, but she has a skin, and let's get the skin. I have it. I thought it was worth getting. It gives her 3% HP, 3% attack, and 10 speed. Like, this is pay to win. Obviously, 10 speed is really good when you're fighting other Lorelei's. To the point where some people, if they don't have this skin, they might just go damage Lorelei instead of this like speed debuff style that I use. Because it's just not nearly as good if you don't go first. And both people have Lorelei's, right? So, I think that the skin is kind of unfair, but let's not get into that. My point is that the speed from the skin matters. It gets her up to 1504 speed, and her lowest speed goes up to 1362. So take that into consideration. Some people might have that. Oh, sorry. I wanted to go down here. All right. Another thing about speed that I'm going to bring up is I'm just going to compare her speed, and this is going to cover the screen. So Sorry about that. I just want to compare her speed to other heroes. And this, don't take this graph by heart because there's some things that don't make sense here. But we're comparing 10-star base speed without guild tech. The reason that you'll notice there are no like clerics on this list is because their speed gets ridiculous at 14-star, right? So she's faster than Kurt, Gerald, Centaur, Scarlet, Reaper, Saw Machine, Aegina, Detlaf, Medusa, and then the reason she's faster than Aegina is because of the skin. So if you don't have the skin, isn't that so sad that the skin makes such a big difference to me? I feel like whatever. This is, you know what? I'm putting this under weakness. The weakness is that the skin makes her way better. That's for sure a weakness because skins aren't cheap. You have to get the stones, or whatever they're called, the shards, like the premium skin shards. But because she runs an energy, you can take her with a speed artifact. So you can still run this like debuff style, but you'll have to run the speed artifact instead of like, you know, Ragnarok if you want to be faster than these heroes. Even I run the speed artifact myself just because I want to be faster than some clerics. But yeah, there you go. Take a look at that. Remember, it's 10-star base stats, so things change later at 14. Her weaknesses, that's what we're talking about. I had to bring up speed in the middle of it, so that's going to be confusing. But another thing is that her active skill can miss. That's a weakness because a lot of like meta heroes don't miss with this. Although she does have mage hit rate, so that kind of helps. And she also has like hit rate from her equipment. So now let's talk about the two roles. I've touched on it a bunch of times now, but she can be your like debuffer support type mage, where she's gonna max speed. She's gonna go speed rune, speed talent, speed artifact like Queen's Crown, and then the other option is she's gonna be like a primary damage dealer for you, which I personally don't run because I think this like the debuffing aspect of her is so good and it just makes your other heroes so much more survivable that you can run a different damage dealer. She does great damage. I'm not saying she's a bad damage dealer. And if you don't have someone like a Kurt or a Ball or an Aegina, or you know, someone that just Valk or someone who just does a lot of damage, then you may need to run her as a damage dealer. In that case, you're gonna run like attack rune, attack talent 1, true damage, Ragnarok as your artifact. But yeah, those were her team roles. Now, real quick to end the video, let's talk about synergies. So she synergizes well with anyone who does extra damage to poison because of her elf talent. That's the only thing I could think of. She's great with every hero, so elf talent, poison on a crit. Now anyone who does extra damage to poisons, they're gonna be poisoned. Think like, you know, Centaur, Aegina, things like that. So the counters to lore. This is actually an interesting section. So the direct counter is actually another lore because the attacking team is always going to fire first. So on defense against another lore, she's not as good. Just being able to go first and reduce the other enemy's speed is so good. For example, if you go first and your enemy team has Lorelei, but you're attacking, you both have the equal speed, you go first, you lower the Lorelei's speed by 35. Now you have someone else like you know, Aegina on your team who's now faster than theirs, so she won't get like the resistances off in time. See what I mean? So she like really counters herself. If you're the attacking, it's a buff. If you're defending, it's not great. The second one, which is like really interesting counter, is Mulan. Remember how Mulan is like countering mages now? I'll take a quick look. This is not a Mulan hero review, but I just want to take a quick look at Mulan. I don't have one at 14 star, so it's gonna be pretty inaccurate here. But she's really fast, increases her self speed by 60, so and self extra damage to mage by 35%. These are both really good. She actually outspeeds Lorelei, so this is like a counter. And she dodges, remember? She has high dodge, which means which means the weakness about Aegina's skill, or not Aegina, Lorelei's skill missing is actually relevant against Mulan. I think Mulan is a really strong counter to Lorelei, and we don't see it very often, but if Lorelei were actually like meta, I think we would see some Mulans pop up by some smart players. Like, off... Uh, the video is going to be longer than I wanted because I went off tangent so much, but I really think that... I saw some pictures, I think it was on the community Discord, it's like people building the same teams. I'm like really tired of seeing the same exact teams. Like some guilds, their entire thing was like the same team, same 6 heroes. I understand that's usually how this game goes because of the events. Like, my event is going to be the same as yours. I saved up the keys just like you did. We're both pulling for the same hero. And honestly, most of your hero copies come from the event. It's not like, oh, I randomly pulled this and this is like great. It's like I pulled a bunch of junk, but I got the event rewards. So your really only options for like differentiating your team is like through moonstones. These are for like strong heroes. So in a game where say like Mulan was not like super common to pull and you couldn't get her from any sources besides events, and you just don't see any, even if she did hard counter Lorelei, you wouldn't see the counter ever appear because she wouldn't be gettable, you know? So that's why you probably see a lot of the same teams, and something I don't like about the game. I shouldn't complain. This is a hero review. Okay. And so overall, I think my assessment for Lorelei, really good debuffer, like annoying to fight against, obviously. Reducing speed is always going to be good, and this starting with energy is really a unique thing no one else has. I think that's cool. I'm looking at Valkyrie during my hero review or overall assessment. Another thing is that she has the potential to do a lot of damage, and it's less like Valkyrie. I was like, oh, you're trading off this for this. It's more like I'm building her this way because this is what I need, and then, or I'm building like in either a damage or a debuff, and it's not like you can't really min-max as easily. Like in Valk, remember, you could be like, I want to do good damage, but I also want to get that attack debuff off, so I'm gonna only be faster than the relevant heroes. Like you can't really do that as well with Lorelei. You kind of want to like maxed out on speed or maxed out on damage. Overall, I think I'm gonna say she's not meta anymore. Like, she's not like required on your team anymore. They're just so much burst heroes now that can get through surviving around even at slower speeds. Some of them that even are getting buffed to the point where they're like single-handedly carrying matches, and I don't think she's able to stop that. She's more of like a team-wide debuffer and a team-wide like helping. She's a support. So I don't think she's a good counter to what's strong right now, but I think she's still worth building. And she lost a lot of value for the fact that you don't have to go like one elf in your aura now, and she was the best elf hero. Still, I think she's good. I don't regret building her. Potentially, I think there's ways we could use her on like specific teams to maybe beat some of the top meta teams, but I wouldn't consider her in there anymore. Well, that's my assessment. Thanks for watching, guys. Sorry this went actually longer. I talked about random stuff for too much, but I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to catch the next one. Sorry it took so long for this one to come out. Peace. Oh, before I go, another shout out to everyone in the Discord. I just really want to show my appreciation to everybody who's been like, hey, make another video, you know, like we really enjoyed the last one. I was telling some people that like even just one comment is just really nice. I feel like I'm not looking to get like a ton of views or anything like that. I just want, hey, someone appreciated the content. They left a nice comment. I was like, you know, that was worth my time. I'm glad I could help somebody out. And hopefully you guys join the Discord. So if we ever play another game, or if in any chance maybe I do like a new account or something on TapTap, we could play together. That would be pretty fun. And shout outs again to Happy Pat for helping me go through all the strengths and things like that. He helped a lot with some of the new stuff that I hadn't seen before coming back into the game. Peace.